Our next set on when, what, and how in socket surgeries starts with Dr. Manik Shah, who will detail on evisceration. And he is the chief of Orbit Oculoplasty and Ocular Oncology Services at Advent Eye Care Systems at Tirunelveli. So let's hear from him.
Good evening to all. First, I thank Dr. Chitra Madam for giving me this opportunity, and also I thank my mentor Dr. Usha Madam for her constant guidance. The definition of evisceration is that is removal of intraocular contents while retaining an intact scleral shell with preserved extraocular muscles, optic nerve, and connective tissue attachments. Just a brief history about evisceration. In 1817, James Spear introduced evisceration. He did following an incidence of expulsive hemorrhage. In 1874, Noyes performed planned surgical evisceration following an intraocular infection. In 1884, Mulz described placing hollow glass sphere into the eviscerated cavity. This is an important revolution in the management. Coming to the indications for evisceration, endophthalmitis and panophthalmitis, these are the most common indication for evisceration. Because evisceration is indicated because that the infection, intraocular infection will not spread to the subarachnoid space with the intact optic nerve sheath. So we are preferring evisceration. And other indication is anterior This is another most common indication. Here we can use implant also. So evisceration with implant will give good cosmetic results. Third indication is penetrating trauma. Here controversy is there whether we have to do enucleation or evisceration. But in view of risk of sympathetic ophthalmia, we can go for enucleation. But if there is not much uveal tissue prolapse, if we are able to remove entire uveal tissue, then we can prefer evisceration. Then fourth indication, blind eyes. There are two indications for removal. One is for pain control, another is for cosmesis. So always we have to consider evisceration as a first choice because it will give better cosmetic result. There are certain contraindications for evisceration such as intraocular tumor, phthisis bulbi, and there is an extensive globe trauma, nystagmus which can lead to bizarre prosthesis movement, and autoimmune disorders with extensive involvement of the sclera, and whenever there is history of systemic malignancy. Then coming to the technique of evisceration, we can prefer local anesthesia or general anesthesia. General anesthesia is indicated in uncooperative patients or if there is severe pain, then we can go for general anesthesia. Otherwise, we can do under local anesthesia. And also you have to obtain consent after proper counseling. That is very important. So we are going to do destructive procedure. So we have to get proper consent. Then second, medical officer opinion is needed before going for evisceration. And during surgery, we have to confirm the eye. That is very important. We should not do any wrong eye removal. That is more medically very much important. Then coming to the types of evisceration, there are two types: without retention of the cornea, with retention of the cornea. Most of our surgeons we are doing without retention of cornea. This is the basic steps in evisceration technique. Peritomy, we have to do 360-degree conjunctival peritomy, and we try to preserve as much as conjunctiva possible so that wound closure will be easier. The next step is we have to remove the corneal button. That is, we have to make sharp incision at the limbus with the 11 blade. Then we can complete the corneal button with scissors. After that, we can use evisceration spoon to remove all intraocular contents, and we make sure that all uveal tissue should be removed to prevent the risk of sympathetic ophthalmia. Then finally, we can apply alcohol to denature the proteins. Then if you are planning for implant, then you have to do sclerotomy. There are different types of sclerotomy are there: radial sclerotomy, posterior sclerotomy, and four-petal techniques. So many techniques we can follow. It depends upon the what type of implant we are putting into the scleral cavity. Then implant placement. This also it will be dealt by subsequent speakers. How will you calculate the size of the implant and what type of implant we can put into the cavity. After putting implant, we should close the wound properly in layers. Then only we can prevent the extrusion of the implant. Then this is a video clip showing evisceration with implant.
1 minute left.
Just we are doing 360-degree conjunctival peritomy. After that, corneal button is removed. Corneoscleral button you can remove, and then we can remove all intraocular contents with evisceration spoon. This is an evisceration spoon. We can remove all the intraocular contents. This is all uveal tissue. We should make sure all uveal tissue should be removed. Then to put implant, we can put radial scleral cuts. This is a silicone implant. It is put inside the scleral cavity. Then overlying conjunctiva and tenons, we have to separate it from underlying sclera. And this wound closure is very important, as already mentioned. We can close the scleral with a 6-0 Vicryl, and without undue tension, we have to close it. Otherwise, exposure will be more common. We can trim the ends also. We do this. Then conjunctival and tenons can be sutured in different layers, or it can be closed as a single layer also. This also we are using 6-0 Vicryl to close the wound. So good hemostasis with adequate closure will give good results. Finally, we can put conformer to maintain the fornixes. So this will complete the evisceration procedure. And this is another technique, but most of us are not doing, with retention of cornea. Whenever we plan for putting large implant, we can retain the cornea. Here you have to make sclerotomy 2 mm above the superior rectus incision site, and we should not passing into the choroid. Then we can pass the long cyclodialysis spatula to between the choroid and sclera to disinsert the uveal tissue at the scleral spur level. After that, we can extend the sclerotomy wound up to 160 degree. Then we can remove all intraocular contents with evisceration spoon, and we have to achieve the hemostasis. Then we have to scrape the corneal endothelium and decimus to produce scarification. Then finally, we can insert the implant inside also, and remaining same to our previous steps like sclera and conjunctiva and tenons should be closed. Then coming to the complications, these are early complications. Pain, it can be well controlled by analgesics. Infections, it can be controlled by sterile technique, peri and post-operative systemic antibiotic. Hemorrhage, which can be controlled by pressure pattern bandage for 24 hours. Then other complications also may happen like exposure or extrusion of the implant, wound dehiscence and granuloma formation. With our adequate surgical and good technique, we can prevent all these complications. Then late complication, advantages of evisceration. It is an intraocular surgery, so it minimally affects the orbital contents. So orbital volume is minimally changed, and removal of infection without potential spread to the subarachnoid space. And also patient is a better psychological effect because the whole eye is not at all removed. And this procedure is quicker and better tolerated by elderly debilitated patients. And whenever we are putting implant with prosthesis, there is superior motility of the prosthesis will be there. And also we can use lighter prosthesis. There is no need for allograft for wrapping the implant material. And always there is a superior cosmetic result compared to enucleation. Then I likely to conclude that evisceration with so much modified techniques, we can put adequate size of implant into the scleral cavity. Thus, we can achieve superior cosmetic and functional result. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your detailed talk. One question to you, Dr. Neelam. It's a painless blind eye. What would you suggest for cosmesis for the patient without evisceration?
For the pain, you mean to say the painless blind eye?
Yes. Would you suggest cosmesis?
Yes, sure. Actually, if it is painless and the size of the eyeball is okay, and we have to discuss with the patient that this eye might go into phthisis or a prephthisis, then the, putting appropriate implant size might become difficult. So we have to really counsel the patient about this, that in future probably the patient might require surgery. And at this stage, when the eyeball size is okay and it's PL negative, atrophic, it's better to, go ahead with the evisceration procedure with the implant, with the proper size implant. It will be otherwise, theoretically, I can say that it would be a better to go ahead with the evisceration surgery if patient wants. But the problem is that there is, a kind of psychological trauma, I personally feel, when we take out the eyeball of a patient, that psychological trauma, even if it's a non-seeing eye, is there. So this vary from case to case. It's very difficult to say like that I'll straight away go ahead with the artificial eye. So we have to really counsel, and we have to talk to them about the long-term consequences of keeping this blind eye. And as we all know, if the eye shrinks, the surgery is little more, complicated, in the sense that we have to give relaxing cuts and we have to make a proper cavity to put the implant. So personally, when I see a patient like this who is PL negative, even if it is painless, I explain, and if patient wants, then I go ahead with evisceration. But one thing I want to highlight here is that ultrasound is very important before we do evisceration. We have to rule out any intraocular tumor. I think that is very important investigation, which should be emphasized to the residents, that they should do ultrasound and look for any intraocular pathology. And if there is any doubt, then please go ahead with enucleation rather than doing evisceration procedure. So that is my, personal opinion, that both ways we can go. If a patient has a normal eye, which is painless, we can just go ahead with artificial eye, but then we should also explain the patient about the long-term, things that can happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Vidya, do you have a question, or shall we move on?
Ma'am, in case of like endophthalmitis, when we are doing evisceration, will you be placing the primary implant, or you choose implant as a secondary procedure?
In endophthalmitis or even in panophthalmitis, if we are giving, IV antibiotics, once the infection is and the congestion is controlled to some extent, we go ahead with evisceration. And I always tell my resident that please put implant, because putting implant is very important. It maintains the the scleral cavity, and it's better to go for non-porous implants, the the spherical implants, because it's said that porous implants can have infective organism in the pores, which can lead to problems later on. So I personally feel, and even for the cases we get, we prefer putting implant, even if a smaller size implant, suppose the sclera is necrosed, or suppose we feel that the cavity is not very healthy, the tissues are not very healthy, go ahead with a smaller implant, but put some implant.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.